On that sunny Saturday morning, activity was already bustling early at Alice's small coffee shop. Located on the corner of a tree-lined street in a peaceful California suburb, the place was a popular gathering spot for many local residents. The exposed brick facade and large windows allowed sunlight to brighten the interior, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. As Alice meticulously arranged the plates of sweets and pastries on the polished wooden counter, she smiled and greeted each customer by name, asking about their families or how their week had been. "Alice, you always know how to brighten our day," exclaimed Mrs. Wilson, an elderly lady with silver hair, who made it a point to visit the coffee shop every morning. She picked up her coffee, always a cappuccino with an extra sprinkle of cinnamon, and settled into her favorite table by the window. Despite the laughter and lively conversations around her, a cloud of sadness shadowed Alice's green eyes whenever her thoughts drifted to her personal life. Married to Chris, an ambitious man who managed a team at a multinational corporation, her love for him was deep and true. However, the tension between them was growing quietly, fueled by the frustration of not being able to have a child. This reality weighed on her heart, creating an invisible barrier that was starting to divide their perfect marriage. In one of their many painful discussions, Alice found herself in the kitchen of her home, a blend of pastel colors and rustic furniture she had personally chosen. Chris was there, seated at the table, his face only lit by the dim light of the lamp. He was massaging her, a gesture that had become more frequent in recent months. "Do you think I'm not trying hard enough?" Alice asked, her voice trembling as it revealed the insecurity she tried to hide. The words seemed to echo off the kitchen walls, heavy with emotion. Chris looked up, his eyes meeting hers. "It's not that, Alice," he began, his voice weary. "But sometimes I wonder if your career, the coffee shop, is enough for us. Maybe we need to think about something more, something that truly gives us a future, perhaps a job that pays better." Chris's critique, though not intentionally cruel, deeply hurt Alice. She loved her coffee shop, not just as a business, but as a sanctuary, a place where she felt fulfilled and valued. However, she also shared Chris's desire to start a family, to hear the laughter of children echoing through the corridors of their home. As she tried to maintain her composure, Alice leaned against the kitchen counter, her hands trembling slightly. "I understand your concerns, Chris, and I know you want the best for us, but the coffee shop is part of who I am. I can't imagine giving it up." Chris sighed, running his hands through his tousled hair. I know. I don't want you to give up anything. I just wish things were easier for us," he admitted, the frustration clear in his voice. Alice stepped closer, placing a hand over his. "We'll find a way, together. We need to believe that," she said, trying to inject some hope into the conversation that weighed heavily on them both. In her heart, Alice knew the answers wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to face the challenges with Chris, keeping faith that in the end, everything would work out. One day, Chris met Isabella at a work meeting. She was the new project manager, recently arrived from another city, with a reputation for boosting profits and optimizing operations wherever she worked. Isabella was tall, with light brown hair that shone under the office lights, and she had a confident and engaging way of speaking that quickly captured the attention of everyone around. One Thursday afternoon, after a long meeting, Chris and some colleagues decided to unwind at a nearby bar. Isabella joined them, and over the course of the evening, she and Chris ended up isolated from the rest of the group, talking in a more secluded corner of the bar. "You really brought some incredible ideas today, Chris," Isabella began, her tone soft amid the buzz of the bar. "Someone like you deserves everything you wish for," she continued, looking directly into his eyes. Chris, already feeling undervalued and insecure in his marriage, found comfort in Isabella's words, a dangerous comfort. "Thank you, Isabella. It's nice to be recognized," he responded, feeling increasingly drawn to her confidence and attention. In the following days, their friendship quickly grew, fueled by frequent messages and casual meetups after work, and the two began a secret relationship. Isabella was straightforward and didn't hide her admiration for Chris, something he found increasingly hard to resist. Chris was becoming more involved with his coworker. Isabella, with her ambition and energy, seemed to be the perfect partner he had always wanted. She shared his passion for work and for advancing in their careers, something Alice, with her more tranquil lifestyle focused on the coffee shop, never fully shared. One evening after work, While having drinks at a sophisticated city bar, Chris found himself opening up to Isabella. "I've always wanted someone who shared my ambitions, someone who understands the importance of making sacrifices for success," he confessed, looking into Isabella's eyes, which glowed with a mix of admiration and desire. Isabella, placing her hand over his on the table, smiled and replied, "Chris, I've always admired your dedication. We have so much in common, and I can see a future for us both." Encouraged by her words, Chris made a risky promise. "I'll sort things out with Alice in the coming months," he said, the weight of his decision becoming clear in his voice. "I want to start a new life, a new family with you." However, the truth about Chris's feelings and intentions surfaced sooner than he had planned. Alice, by chance, picked up Chris's phone that he had left in the kitchen while he was showering. Seeing a message from Isabella, curiosity and a twinge of suspicion led her to open the conversation. The words she read confirmed her worst fears. Chris was in love with someone else and planned to leave her. "I can't stop thinking about you," the message read. With her heart pounding, Alice opened the conversation and began reading the exchanges between them, each word striking her heart like a blow. When Chris came out of the shower, he found Alice sitting at the table, the phone in her trembling hands and tears running down her face. "How could you?" she whispered, her voice broken by betrayal. "I thought we were in this together, Chris. How could you throw it all away?" Caught off guard and guilty, Chris stood still, unable to form a response. He knew there were no excuses for what he had done, that he had betrayed the woman he loved for an illusion of something missing in his life. I don't know what to say, Alice. I'm sorry," he murmured, but the words felt empty even to his own ears. With nothing more to say, and knowing there was no way to fix what had been broken at that moment, Chris began to pack his things. He knew he had lost not just Alice's respect, but also a part of himself that he might never recover. With one last look at the life they had built together, he walked out the door, leaving behind not just the house, but also a love story that now seemed to belong to another time, a time of dreams and promises that now faded away like smoke. The pain and betrayal were too much for Alice. Without confronting Chris directly, she simply began to pack her things and left, and he did not have the courage to try to reverse the situation. 2 years had passed, and Alice had rebuilt her life with a stunning beauty that emerged from adversity. After a period of mourning and healing, she opened up to new possibilities, finding in Michael an unexpected partner. Michael was a kind and calm man, whose serene smile and patient approach with the children in his classroom made him beloved by his students and their parents. He brought Alice a type of calm and steady love, a love that grew over time and was based on mutual respect and admiration. Together, they celebrated the arrival of a baby, Samuel, whose smile was the exact copy of Michael's. Alice's pregnancy had been a delightful and somewhat miraculous surprise, especially after years of unsuccessful attempts with Chris. Each smile and gesture from little Samuel filled the couple's home with joy and renewed Alice's faith in life and love. A friend's wedding became the perfect occasion to show the world the happiness Alice had found. At the reception, she and Michael danced with ease and laughter, twirling around the hall to the sound of cheerful music, completely absorbed in each other. That's when Chris appeared. He was visibly older, not just in years, but in experiences. The weight of his past choices marked his face, and his eyes, once vibrant, now carried a glow of exhaustion and regret. Seeing him approach, Alice felt a tightening in her heart, completely surprised by the unexpected encounter. I am ruined," Chris confessed, as he came close enough to be heard over the music. His gaze was fixed on the ground. "Isabella left me and took everything I had. I don't know what to do now." Alice listened with a complex mix of emotions. While a part of her felt sorry for Chris, there was also an undeniable relief that she no longer shared his tumultuous life. "Chris, I'm really sorry for everything that has happened to you," she said, her voice carrying a maturity and calmness gained over the years. "But I want you to know that I have found happiness. Michael is a wonderful man." Soon the expression on Chris's face changed as he listened to each word. The sting of regret he felt was sharp, a mix of longing and awareness of what he had lost. He looked at Alice, at the woman she had become, and at the man who was dancing not far from her. "You look really happy, Alice. "I'm truly happy for you," Chris finally said, his words coming out a bit shaky. "I hope one day I can find something similar." Alice nodded, offering Chris a gentle smile. "I hope so, Chris. I wish you find the peace you need," she replied, before returning to the arms of Michael, who wrapped her in a protective embrace, both watching as Chris walked away, a solitary figure lost amidst the celebration and joy of others. During the same wedding party, he approached again, a bit hesitant, clearly struggling to find the right words. His gaze fixed on Samuel, who was playing under Alice's watch, laughing and running with inexhaustible energy. "Is he your son? How is that possible?" Chris finally managed to ask, his voice loaded with incredulity and a hint of jealousy. He vividly remembered the countless tests and treatments he and Alice had gone through, all unsuccessful. Alice looked at Samuel with a loving smile before turning her attention back to Chris. "Yes, he is my son with Michael. I know it's surprising, Chris, given everything we went through. But it happened naturally, in a way that neither of us expected," she explained, her voice calm and sweet. Alice's serenity in the face of the situation made Chris reflect on his own choices. Tormented by memories and regrets, he felt an urgent need to seek answers about his own health. In the days following the party, he visited a renowned fertility specialist, driven by a mix of desire to understand and the need to confront his own insecurities. Sitting in the sterile, impersonal waiting room of Dr. Benson's medical office, Chris fidgeted with his hands, anxious for the verdict. The doctor, a middle-aged man with a sympathetic expression, called Chris into his office. "The results of your tests confirm that you are infertile, Chris. This may have been a contributing factor to the previous difficulties you mentioned," the doctor explained, handing him an envelope with the test details. The news struck Chris like a blow. Dr. Benson placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "There are many ways to build a family, Chris, and there's support available. Whatever path you choose to follow," he offered, trying to ease the burden. He felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. Suddenly, all his actions, his infidelity, and the subsequent loss of Alice took on a new weight. He had left Alice, believing that the problem was hers, that she couldn't give him children. But the cruel irony was that the problem had always been with him. Driving back home, the street seemed blurred through the tears that stubbornly fell from his eyes. "I left the woman I loved for nothing," Chris thought bitterly. "And now she has found the happiness I always wanted to give her, but with another man." The devastation was profound, but it was also a moment of clarity for Chris. He realized he needed to make amends, not just with Alice, but with himself. He needed to learn to live with his mistakes, and perhaps one day, find a way to redemption. This painful revelation, although late, was the first step on his long journey of healing and acceptance. As the night arrived, Chris found himself sitting alone in his apartment, each object around him a reminder of the emptiness his life had become after his separation from Alice. The silence was palpable, filled only by his tumultuous thoughts. He decided he needed to see Alice one more time, to offer a sincere apology, not to seek reconciliation, but to find some closure for both of them. The next day, Chris drove to Alice's old coffee shop, a place that still held so many memories of happier times. He found her there, with little Samuel in her arms, serving customers with her warm smile. Seeing him, Alice was visibly surprised, but not unreachable. "Can I talk to you for a moment, Alice?" Chris asked with a soft voice, full of a vulnerability he rarely showed. Alice nodded, asking a colleague to take care of the counter. They sat at a reserved table in the corner, away from the curious eyes of the customers. "Alice, I came here because I need to say something important," Chris began, his gaze firm on her eyes. "I recently found out I'm infertile, which makes our past situation ironic, I guess. But more than that, I realized how much I wronged you. I ran away when things got tough, instead of standing by your side and facing whatever was needed together." Alice listened in silence, her expression calm yet attentive. "I am truly sorry for all the pain I caused. Seeing you happy now, with Michael and Samuel, makes me realize you found what you always deserved, and it makes me happy, but also sad that I wasn't the person who could have been by your side," Chris continued, each word loaded with genuine regret. Alice, after a moment of reflection, responded kindly. "Chris, hearing this from you means a lot. It was a difficult journey for both of us. I forgive you because I have also found peace, and I hope you can forgive yourself and find your own happiness." Chris felt a weight lift from his shoulders with Alice's words. "Thank you, Alice. That means everything to me. And you're right. It's time for me to move on. Perhaps even start a new family in a way I never thought before," he said, a plan beginning to form in his mind, perhaps considering adoption or other forms of parenthood. They parted with a hug, a gesture of finality and renewal of personal vows. Chris left the coffee shop feeling slightly lighter, though still reflective about the paths his life could take from here on. Alice returned to her work, holding Samuel a little tighter, grateful for her new life and the peace she finally felt. She looked out the window, watching Chris walk away, and whispered to herself, "Goodbye, Chris. Good luck." And so, each went on their journey, wiser and more resilient, each in their own way, navigating the complexities of life and relationships with a new perspective and hope for the future. If you liked this short story, like the video and follow us.